Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us to celebrate the outstanding work of this year's DGA Documentary Film Award nominees. I'm Marina Zenovich, and I'm speaking to you tonight on behalf of my co-chairs, James Mole and Alex Stapleton, and all members of the DGA Documentary Committee. The committee was established in 2020 to represent the interests of all DGA documentary filmmakers and to strengthen our community. We work closely with DGA staff to bolster the labor agreements that protect us. If you'd like to hear more about the benefits and protections that come with being a part of the DGA, please reach out to the DGA staff representative for documentaries, the wonderful Jennifer Pete. Her contact info will be dropped in the Zoom chat. Tonight, I consider it an honor to welcome these 7 extraordinary filmmakers for a discussion about the craft of documentary filmmaking. This year's nominated films represent a diverse group of filmmakers and subjects. Each documentary paints a vivid picture of our world, transporting us across different cultures and narratives, shedding light on issues around the globe and also here at home. Each one of these films is a vital historical document and also a work of art. And before we go any further, a big thank you to our fellow DGA documentarians who gave so generously of their time by agreeing to be part of the judging panel to review and vote on the films for this year's award. Your moderator tonight is an accomplished filmmaker, TV host, and comedian. He won an Emmy for his HBO documentary, 1000% Me, Growing Up Mixed, and a Peabody Award for his 2022 Showtime docuseries, We Need to Talk About Cosby. He is the co-author of the New York Times bestselling book, Do the Work, an anti-racist activity book, and the author of The Awkward Thoughts of W. Kamau Bell. Kamau is on the board of directors for Donors Choose, a nonprofit that helps teachers raise money for class projects, and Live Free, a nonprofit dedicated to ending gun violence, mass incarceration, and mass criminalization. Kamau is also the ACLU's celebrity ambassador for racial justice and a brand ambassador for the Doris Duke Foundation. Please welcome your host of our event, W. Kamau Bell.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. First of all, I'd like to apologize for my bio being so long. We're running out of time. We'll see what we can squeeze in. Just kidding. So before we get to the discussion with our nominees, before I introduce our nominees tonight, let's take a look at the nominated projects. And so check this out right now, and then we'll get to the discussion. Yeah, hello, I'm back. First of all, I think it's clear from that clip package that we're dealing with just an amazing array of films to be nominated this year. I don't envy having to make that choice. Films that are talking about big things, little things, and just films that are all really cutting through a lot of the noise that we're hearing in media right now. So I'm going to have each filmmaker introduce themselves. I'm going to start out with the filmmaker behind the filmmakers behind Cutting Through Rocks.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. But my name is Sara Khaki, and I'm the filmmaker behind Cutting Through Rocks, director, producer, as well as editor.
I'm Mohammadreza Eyni, and I'm so happy to be here today and talk more about our film and also praise other colleagues' films here.
That's what we're here to do. We're here to hand out lots of love and compliments and flowers. It's an important thing in this era of the world. Let's meet the filmmaker behind The Perfect Neighbor.
Hello. Thank you for having me. It's a real honor to be here with everyone. I'm Geeta Gandbhir, and I'm a director, and I'm the director and a producer on The Perfect Neighbor.
And next, let's meet the filmmaker behind a film whose title scared me when I first saw it, The Mistress Dispeller.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Lowe, and I'm so honored to be here. I'm the director and one of the producers and DP of this film. It's such an honor to be in conversation with all of you guys.
Thank you. Next, let's meet the filmmaker behind 2,000 Meters to Andriivka.
Hi, good to see you all. I'm Mstyslav Chernov. I'm a Ukrainian filmmaker, writer, director, and DP behind 2000 Meters to Andriivka. And it's so good to see you all. And I want to watch all of the films again now.
I,
After that clip we've seen. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I do want to say it's important. I really want to lean into the love fest of this all with everything going on in the world. So thank you for taking that note. Next, let's meet the filmmakers behind Cover Up.
Laura?
Yeah, hi everyone. It's so great to be here. My name's Laura Poitras. I'm a producer, one of the directors, and one of the editors on Cover Up. And I love these fellow nominees and their amazing films. So it's great to be here with you all.
And I'm Mark Obenhaus, producer and co-director with Laura on Cover Up. And I too just am so pleased to be here and to have spent time just immersed in the films that you've all made, and just am kind of in awe and honored to be among you all.
Mark, you say you're in awe. I'm the one who's in awe because I feel lucky to be here, surrounded by all of this. I feel pretty lucky that I found myself in this position, proud DGA member, and honored to be asked to join. So, first of all, I think I come from talking to your average people, a lot of the work that I do. I mean, we all do, but I'm just saying that I am out there on the streets talking to regular folks about regular things. And I think that people don't realize how long it takes to go from I have the idea for a doc to the doc premieres at whatever festival or gets to the fine cut or whatever the end is. So I just want to go through and ask everybody, talk about from the first moment you're like ruminating on the idea, or you're like, this is the idea, to when it ends, and to when it's like it's done now. So let's start with you, Elizabeth.
So I met the Mistress Dispeller that is in the film in early 2021. And I had been researching about mistresses in China because I thought it would be really interesting to tell a love story from the marginalized perspective of someone who's sort of, not within a sanctioned bounds of a relationship. And on day one of our scouting trip with her, she managed to get us access to a husband, a wife, and a mistress of a different case at the tail end of it. And I remember being so moved by their perspectives, unexpectedly, even towards the cheating husband and the mistress, that I thought there was a film worth making here if I could have audiences go on that similar journey over 90 minutes, feeling their compassion expand to places they didn't feel comfortable with at first. But I did not realize that it would take 3 years of following the Mistress Dispeller and filming at least 6 other cases and couples before, in the final 4 months of production, we got the kind of access that we did, and they chose to remain featured even by the end of the process when they discover, what the role the Mistress Dispeller had played in their lives. So I don't take their participation for granted at all, because it took a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to let you know, I watched this movie with my wife, and she was like, I don't know if husbands should be allowed to watch this. They should be kept for the wives to know about. Yes, a very powerful and lyrical film. Sara and Mohammadreza, let's talk about also. Oh, before I move on, Elizabeth. So you said 3 years? Is that what you said? 3 years?
3 years of production, and then like 9 months of editing with incredible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna see who wins. We'll see. Sara and Mohammadreza. How long did from this is a film to it's ready to show the world?
So we started our production journey in 2017 until early 2024, and our editing lasted for a year, so 8 years total.
Actually, when we entered to the village to make this film, we didn't expect that we are going to spend 7 years in the film.
Production.
And it was an 8 session of filming, and each time we stayed there for 90 days, 70 days, 50 days. And actually, each time we're like, this is the last session we are here. But and after facing with different layers, both of us were like, no, we need to be patient. And actually spending a lot of time there, we fell in love with each other in the process. So it was 2 films at the same time. One camera. We need to make it.
And we got married.
We got married.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my God.
And also the story of cutting through rocks that we are here tonight to talk about it. Yeah, actually it was being patient is good, sometimes for
Two different reasons.
Well, we'll focus on Cutting Through Rocks and not the love story. We'll wait for that film to premiere at next
Is it
year.
in the
Next
making? Is it in the making, guys?
I feel like one of us should make it.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm
yeah,
surprised if someone approaches you after this session.
Yeah.
Someone named Mr. Love, is that who's going to approach them?
I wish I can stop making movies about war, so maybe.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Just-
yeah. And Mstyslav has a very cute daughter, and I told him that, we wish for him to make a film about him and his relationship with his daughter. We are living in a crazy times, and so sorry that we are kind of forced to work on films about war or about,
Yeah.
many different social issues that we are facing with.
And forced to be separated at times too.
Yeah, no, I think that's an important point to bring up because, a thing that is not talked about often enough that I think filmmakers and artists talk to each other about is the weight you carry. You don't say it out loud in front of other people regularly because you don't want to look like you're saying that you're carrying a heavier weight than your subjects are carrying. But there is a weight of the stories that you carry. And when I was making my Cosby doc, I was saying I just want to make my next doc could be about noodles. But somebody else made that doc in the meantime. So. Well, let's talk to you, Mstyslav. Let's talk about your this natural segue into your film. How long did it take from the time you started till the time you thought this is a film till the end?
I think for me, for us, it took 2 years, but the topic is so urgent and so current that we rushed, and I would love to spend more time on making a film, but it was finding a balance between the urgency of the story and making sure it's also artful. It has all the elements that a good film should have. And I started shooting it while we were promoting 20 Days in Mariupol. So those two stories were overlapping. And I was still under the heavy weight of 20 Days in Mariupol. And I've been coming back to Ukraine and shooting in the trenches. So it's just like never stopping flow of stories that go through you and through your camera. And some of them make it to the film. Some of they just stay with you. I'm sure you all experience so much more that finally goes into a film.
Well, I think that really speaks to the fact there are different, there are the docs where it's like, I need to chase this story for a long time, or I need to chase this and figure out what the story is. And then there's a doc that is like, I need to get this out as soon as possible because it's happening right now. This is not, and your film is beautiful, and it looks like you took as much time as you had. It took a lot of time on it, and it's beautiful. But I understand there's a certain pressure that some subjects have where it's like, this needs to be out right now. So thank you for doing that work. Let's go to Geeta. Let's talk about how long did your film take from stem to stern?
Sure. And forgive me, I'm kind of giddy because I have missed all these folks. Like I feel like we were like it became like a family, at least to me. They might think this is weird, some of them, but I'd be like we were together a lot, so to see everyone again is so exciting. But for me, we started. It was around 2023 when the murder, Ajika Owens was murdered, and that was the genesis of the film. And then we premiered at Sundance in 2025. So it was also very quick, kind of like Mstislav's film. It felt urgent. So we didn't want to we wanted to get it out quickly while the case and the issue is sort of still in the zeitgeist. Also, our film is made primarily of police body camera footage and surveillance footage and cell phone footage, things that were really police evidence for the case. So there was definitely additional production, but we knew it wouldn't be extensive. Like we wanted to try to stay within those materials so as not to go back and re-traumatize the community by revisiting the murder with them in interview. So it was for me, and I think probably for all of us, it was a fairly quick turnaround. Usually it takes longer than that, but I think this was just one of those ones that we felt we had to get out.
And yes, and your film does have you sort of put it on yourself because you could have made a lot of choices. But when you're saying we're going to try to use generally just the footage we have available. You're sort of putting it in a box around it. That sort of means you sort of already have made choices on the creative. You know, you're not sitting around thinking about what you can do. If you're like, no, this is the box that is around.
100%. And it was something that it was sometimes it was hard for me to stick to. I actually had a very determined editor, very Deanna Lieberman, who was like, because I would waver sometimes. I was like, oh, this is not enough. Like, what are we doing? Like, we cannot. This is not enough to tell this story. She was like, this was the vision. You know, we're gonna stick to it. It's okay. Like the audience, trust the audience. So when I faltered, she was very firm, and that was really helpful. And like I said, luckily I think a number of us started. I think three of us started at Sundance, maybe, but we were at Sundance together with our films. So that was that entry point. You know, someone obviously they thought I thought it was quite experimental in a way, but it was accepted there, and that's where its life began.
Yes. Let's talk to the filmmakers behind Cover Up.
Wow. Well, I can sort of start because I sort of start earlier, and it's funny you used the clip. Is the clips use a lot of footage from the film that I made in 1985 with Cy Hirsch when I was introduced to him, and in a funny way, I've been sort of thinking about making films with him ever since. I've made a couple after that. And but I always had in the back of my mind making a film about Cy, and it kind of became more and more real as we got closer into the 2000s, and then of course after COVID and all that, and it was just a process. I just thought he was an incredibly important figure, specifically in journalism, and it was something that sort of incubated for a long, long time, and then. Laura has another story of applying to him to do a film about him, asking him many times over the years, and finally we just came together. But the process, I think, even the period that Laura and I were working together was still about 3.5 years or something like that. But I think it's been germinating an awful lot longer than that for both of us.
For me, from idea phase to premiere was 20 years. Solid 20 years, but, Cy, crushed my idea very quickly when I brought it to him. He said, get lost. So it was just had to, sort of stayed in my mind. And then it was actually early 2023 that I reached out to him again, and then he recommended I talk to Mark. So from then we started going into production. So actually from once production started, it was less than 3 years. It was probably 2.5 years from production beginning to premiere. So we started in 2023.
Well, I'm going to take the 1985 number and say you all are the winners for the film that is gestating the longest.
Good, we got a prize.
You get another prize.
Oh my God!
Give you another prize. But I mean, I think that it brings up so many things that I would love to talk about. And we'll figure out if we get to all these things. But just the idea of like getting a subject to say yes, and let's go into that version of this, and how you get someone, and where some subjects are like, I've been waiting all my life to be sat down and talked to about my work or what I'm doing, and then some subjects you're like, why would you want to talk to me? So we can talk about. Let's go back to you, Elizabeth, because I feel like you had many people you had to convince. Some of whom probably, and as you said, didn't even really know at the time. So you had to do 2 convincings. Can you talk about that process of like getting people to agree the first time and then getting them to re-agree?
Yeah. Most of the credit really goes to the Mistress Dispeller, Teacher Wang. Somehow she has this miraculous trust that she's built with her clients and able to build it so quickly over a short period of time that she, manages to get them to be on camera. And also my producer, Maggie Lee, who's incredible at getting access to things and maintaining access. But I will say, I think, for the women, most of the time we were filming with wives at first who, had discovered their husbands had cheated on them. A lot of them felt that if they shared their private struggles publicly, that it would sort of help other women who usually navigate this kind of domestic crisis in shame and in secrecy. So there's that altruistic side. But for our husband and mistress, as you said, because deception is so much a part of Teacher Wang's work, they couldn't have known what the film was about in the beginning. And so they were approached to be in a film, very broadly about modern love in China. And that's what they had
Oh,
agreed to, in which, they might be a small part of an ensemble, which at that point, we
Wow.
filmed with so many people in different love industries that was possible. At the end of the 4 months of filming with them, we reapproached them once they fully understood, of course, what the Mistress Dispeller had done in their lives, and sort of gave them the opportunity to either reconsent to being a part of the project or dropping out. And we could allow them that grace because over those 3 years, we had filmed with divorce lawyers and matchmakers and dating camps as a backup plan because we weren't sure whether we would get the kind of access that we had. So it would have been a much more diffuse sort of essayistic approach to love in China instead of the character-driven film that we ended up with because of their generosity.
Well, not to spoil anything, but do you feel like you have another film sitting on in an edit bay somewhere of this other film that
sounds
is
like it.
yeah. We're all pitching new films to each other. Yes.
I feel like it's such a can of worms to reopen all this other footage and to renegotiate the access and like how far the film will go that we're probably going to leave those on the cutting room floor.
Fair enough.
Hey, can I
Until,
ask a question?
until the DVD release.
Yeah, the DVD
Yes.
really has some deleted
Yes.
scenes.
Yeah, the Blu-ray. Who said they would ask something?
Yeah, I do. How could they not know that clearly it went on for a long time, and the footage, the scenes are so intimate. How could they not know your purpose? I just find it hard to believe. It's just
So I mean that's a great question. And we were also constantly wondering ourselves, like, how much do they know? How much have they figured out? But throughout those 4 months that we were there with them, we actually kept our sort of face to like direct contact with them to a minimum, other than sort of like being friendly on set. But like we never had their phone numbers because the Mistress Dispeller didn't want us to inadvertently sort of like spill the beans over the course of those 4 months and disrupt the Mistress Dispelling case. And also we didn't want to like build sort of conflicts of interest if we got too close with the wife or the mistress or the husband. So we kept a distance where we were literally trying to just be a fly on the wall for those 4 months until the end, with the master interview where we got a sense of like what they were thinking and what they were feeling throughout those 4 months. And of course, like they only agreed to a few days of filming at first, but because they got along with us, they allowed us to film them for 4 months. But there were couples that dropped out as they started, to figure things out, or if they just no longer felt comfortable.
I mean, you're sort of talking about the secret sauce of this kind of documentary is
well,
making sure you're actually a decent person to hang around, to make sure that people actually feel like you're not in the environment distracting. You may be additive. You're actually polite and these sorts of things. I find that goes a real long way.
Yeah, and that we were like really entering it without judgment because that was the whole
Mhm.
point of the film, so that audiences could feel sort of curiosity and empathy with everyone in the film.
Yeah.
I kept wondering while watching it
Yeah.
when you were going to break the fourth wall, and it seemed your point of view was so distant for so long, and then in the end you do break it. And I wondered what your thinking was about that. It's remarkable, I thought.
No, that was also something that my editor, Charlotte Munch-Bengtson, and I wrestled with a lot because we could have broken the fourth wall at any point throughout the film. But we decided that we wanted the first 3 quarters to feel like a fiction film where you're just invested
It does.
in character
Mhm.
and their interior emotions so that you kind of forget, despite how impossible it is, of how the film is made. And then at the end, of course, we had to sort of show our hand and show how the sausage is made. And that sort of reaffirms that, this is all real, even though it can feel so fictional. But yeah.
Well, let's keep this. First of all, great, and Ben, thank you, and let's keep this going. Mstyslav, I want to talk to you about convincing, or if there's convincing that has to happen for you in the way that you're doing it, because I feel like these are very intimate films, both yours and Elizabeth, but in a very different way. Can you talk about the idea of recruiting someone to let you be there, the people who let you be there?
I think the first and foremost, you have to be on the battlefield with these guys, and that's the key, because the film also uses some of the body cam footage and is very much could have existed built around that body cam footage and built around drone shots and some of the interviews, but we felt that If we are going to go so deep in these tragedies, if we are going to come to families and tell them, look, there is a moment in a film when your son loses his life on the battlefield. To be able to do that, we just had to be on the battlefield too. It cannot be told from the distance without telling the family or without telling their friends that, hey, we are just beside you. And also acquiring that footage was not that easy. Some of that footage came from our friendship directly with the soldiers, but some of it we've been negotiating for almost a year because it is a combat footage. It has quite sensitive data in it. It has quite not always portraying successful missions, which is kind of painful for the military to show their fails too. So you have to get closer. You have to get to be friends with them, really, to be able to get to the end of the story. And then, but when you are entrenched, when bombs are falling right next to you, when you all know you're gonna or probably can die every minute, that's where the friendship develops very quickly. I mean, that development of those human relationships when death is near becomes instant, because that may be the last minute you're alive, and maybe that's the person is in front of you is the last person you ever see. So yeah, there is that, and we still keep the relationship with the families. We're still coming back to them. We still go to the anniversaries of death of our protagonists and spend time with families. And when people approach us that want to help the families that lost their loved ones, we connect them with those who want to help. So they became like a family to us too.
Yes.
And they're literally right now, they're literally defending, they're like 30 kilometers, so like 15 miles from my home, they are defending my house in Kharkiv. So I also think about them a lot until now.
Yeah, it's sort of again speaks to what I was saying about earlier about carrying these stories don't end when the film ends for most of us.
No.
You know, that there's not a sense, especially if they're about your community and people and your family and people. You know, it's you can't just walk away and go, I'm finished with that one, move on to the next. So.
And Geeta says as well, and Geeta says how important her film was for the community and for the community to know that, you know, the world acknowledges the tragedy, that the world learns about the tragedy, and like how their whole production team was part of that family and part of that community. It just, tells me that documentary films are more than cinema. Sometimes they are part of the life.
Well, let's talk to you, Geeta, about that because I think you're also in a somewhat different position where you have the footage. You don't necessarily have to connect with the people. You could make it and just sort of send it out into the world and never connect with the community that you're sort of covering. I mean, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't do that, but others would. You know, so can you talk about that again, like talking to people and connecting with the people who are featured in the film?
Sure. No, thank you for that. And thank you, Mstyslav, for what you said, because that resonates so much, I think, with all of us. Just the fact that the responsibility that we carry, as filmmakers for the communities that we deal with. So Kamau, for me, actually, this film, it wasn't, the way that you spoke about it. Unfortunately, I mean, I guess I don't know if there's a fortunately or unfortunately, but for me, the reason I made the film is because of a personal connection. So it actually was the reverse. So Ajika Owens was my sister-in-law's best friend. And so the reason that we ended up being involved in making the film was because of that connection. So the night that Ajika was murdered, we got a phone call, myself and my producer, Nakan Kwantu, who's also my husband. And so it was very much a family affair. And my other producer, Elisa Payne, who's with my company Message Pictures, we all sort of just kind of sprang into action to try to support the family and got involved. So it was kind of the reverse. And the footage came to us because we became kind of a media liaison team for the family, trying to get news coverage around the case. Because of Stand Your Ground in Florida, we thought that Susan Lawrence, the shooter, would maybe walk away. Like we have the precedent of Trayvon Martin, so we thought that could happen. And then when I received the body camera footage from the family lawyers, we got it through the lawyers, and Nakan looked at it first. And really, they sent it to us because they were like, what the hell is this? You know, it was 30 hours of footage that just came on a thumb drive in a jumble, and it was not synchronized. They couldn't make real sense of it. So they were like, look at this and tell, can you help us with this? And I strung it out to a timeline because I used to be an editor, really originally, like kind of for them. And so we could see what happened. And that's when the idea of a movie came to light after synchronizing and organizing all the footage, because I realized it went back 2 years and showed really what you never see when a crime like this occurs, which is the community as they were before, and how, how basically events occurred, and how one outlier, this beautiful sort of multiracial community, how one outlier who is sort of weaponized racism and emboldened by like predatory laws like Stand Your Ground, and also by her access to weapons, was able to destroy kind of this gorgeous community and take the life of, a young, beautiful mother of four. So I think for us, the film was partly grief work, and we made it independently that way, but we stayed very close to the family and did it only with really Ajika's mother's consent, because I had nothing else to offer her, and I didn't have money, much anything, I'm not a lawyer or like a therapist, the things they needed immediately. I only know how to make films. So my idea was, when I was like, we could maybe get this story out there and use it, to again push back against these laws that failed your daughter, and maybe, and if it sells, we can, if there's money, then the majority of it can go to you and the kids. And that's what ended up happening. That's how it went. But it was just sort of a pipe dream. To see what we could do and how we could help the community. But as far as and what was interesting about it is, for us, is we had to work backwards, because we had to find, even though technically, because the footage was public record, and it's police record, also it became public record, and because it's police evidence, technically we didn't necessarily have to go and release people, but we certainly were not going to put them out in the world without their consent. So we actually had to find everyone who's in the community, identifying them in the footage and locating them, and then asking them for their permission, to explaining what we were doing. A lot of them consented. Some of them we couldn't find, like particularly there were children. And so we had to blur them. And the police had already blurred some people. They had redacted some people. And then some people they hadn't. So it was just kind of a mess. But so we would, if we couldn't find the person, particularly children, or didn't, we would redact them as well. So that was the way that it went for us. But we showed the film to the community before it was broadcast. They knew what we were doing, and so it was very painful for them to watch. But I think ultimately they told us that they wanted it out in the world. Like, even though they saw it, they felt like it was necessary. They understood what we were doing.
I mean, I can't help but also want to ask you about just the idea of body cam footage generally, as we sort of see these more discussions about it. As I told people before we started, I'm in Minneapolis right now, and there's a lot of talk about body cam footage and federal agents should be having body cam footage, and how that just did your thoughts about body cam footage evolve? Did you have any thoughts about it as you're going through all this?
So it's interesting, and I think some of these poor folks on air have had to hear me talk about this, but it has sort of evolved, because body camera footage for, again, police surveillance tools for us as people of color can be they're dangerous. They can be, they're they are tools of surveillance. They can be used to criminalize us. They can be used, for they can be used against us. But when you look at what's happening in the world, and with the case of, again, Renee Good, which is one of the most, the most recent murders by ICE, you really see how important that footage is. You know what I mean? Because obviously a different story may have been told. And we know with the case of Ajika, I firmly believe without that footage, without us having access to that body camera footage, it could have gone very differently. So, and then there's only 8 states where it's required, where body camera footage is required. So it makes you wonder, again, in all the other states, what could be happening with, again, and there's no accountability. So I do think, I am, again, I think we are increasingly seeing how important it is that law enforcement and, again, be held accountable, and that what they do, their actions are documented.
Yes, thank you for that. Sara and Mohammadreza, I want to ask you about this sort of the same thing about you're there following one person, learning about their life. How does that how are you, were there convincing? Is there fear about also exposing her? And how does that conversation go? I'm sure it's an ongoing conversation.
So the whole story came about when I was actually sitting in New York. I was born and raised in Tehran, Iran, and grew up witnessing so many women like Sara Shahverdi fighting for their independence, and I witnessed that. And I saw so many women in my family and extended family who were, paving ways for their own future, for their independence, but also for other women and girls around them. So I was always inspired by that. And then I left Iran at a young age, and now having lived equally between the two worlds, some of the topics that are now explored in Cutting Through Rocks in retrospect are mainly the gender injustice, or the way in which women's bodies become battleground at times, are really shared common concerns. So I had these thoughts and ideas in mind, and then I started doing an extensive research on those women who chose not to leave their communities, and how are they pushing boundaries for their space, for their communities. So then I came across, from one phone to another, one call to another, I came across the story of this tenacious individual who lives in the northwest of Iran, rides a motorcycle, had been a midwife and delivered 400 kids. And so through several months of phone call conversations with her, I finally discovered that she is thinking about running for a council seat. And that was a combination of her character, the stories I gathered. I felt that there's a story that's worth telling. And I also knew that we need to have this story told in a cinematic way, and that because of this region being male dominated, I knew that I shouldn't be the only director. So I called Mohammadreza, who I had the opportunity to work with on previous projects remotely. So I called him and I said, will you come to this village with me, and we go and explore what's there to be explored? And it was by luck that
Thank you for
you
calling
took
me.
the call.
Yeah, I took the call. Yes. You know, of course. So I'm coming from the community northwest of Iran, and despite 30% of Iranian people speak this language, there's rare films coming from this region. Everybody knows about Iranian cinema, but mostly about the capital city or the Persian language speaking communities. But this time it was an amazing opportunity for me to make a film about my community. I've witnessed a lot of similar stories that you saw in the film. So this time, having Sara as a female director made it possible to make an intimate film, because otherwise it was not possible at all. So, and also for the people of the village, when I started talking with them in Azeri Turkish language, it was like it. They accepted me like, yes, Mohammadreza is one of us. And also Sara, uh, you know, she created a very good, wonderful connection with women in the community. I can say they were waiting for someone like Sara Shahverdi to actually fight for them, and they voted for her. And also someone like Sara Khaki as a director to inspire them. And I witnessed that both of them, two Saras, one as a director behind the camera and one Sara Shahverdi in front of camera, made it possible to make a independent, intimate film like Cutting Through Rocks. And I can say that it's an observational verite film. Making verite films, observational films, is very hard everywhere on this planet. But actually making films like, cutting in Iran, coming from Iran, is even harder because we have spent more time and energy behind the camera than making the film itself. Because to getting access to some places like the court, like the whole Gears school, we spent 4 or 5 months to get permission, and being able to, for example, for the court scene, 40 minutes to just shoot there. And later we spent 40 days to edit that footage because it was just making it fluent, and also we were stopped from filming by
Yeah.
the authority many times. But I can say with people in the village, even in opponents, we didn't have problem. They were open to just opponents clearly talk about Sara Shahverdi and why they think that she's not a good representative or being a good leader in the community. I can say we were so patient with this story, and I'm happy that we were patient to see the change that happened in the village. And we need that now more than ever, especially in our country now in Iran, with a lot of tragic stories that coming out. We need that. And also the idea of a leader, a good leader to empower others. We need that more than ever. Even here now, I'm in New York. We need that here too, and everywhere.
Yeah. Can you talk about, because there's something it's so inspirational and hopeful. As I watched, I'm excited to show my daughters, but like just the idea of the need to tell a story, or the want, or were you excited to tell a story that did have hope and inspiration in it?
hmm It's something that, for me, literally moving back and re-immigrating back home, I found that the idea of resilience is so vital in a day-to-day. I mean, I may just wake up and not do much and just drive from one place to another but that idea of it goes hand in hand with survival, I in some levels. And I kind of saw that how the idea of resilience is in the DNA of goes hand in hand with being an Iranian. And I experienced that because, I was too young when I was living in Iran, but now coming back and living it for 7, 8 years, I realized that, and I started to appreciate that idea very much in the day to day of people. And also, when it comes to Sara Shahverdi and her character, I mean, she's really always a negotiator, and always stands, even in some moments in the film, we have her winning the election, but she's kind of caught between the women who are waving their hands from the inside, but between them and also men who are dancing. She's in between, in the middle of the men and women, and she's kind of trying to connect the two together. And she's such a negotiator, and also, despite all the odds and all the setbacks, she's always finding that that light at the end of the tunnel. That's how her character is, and that's one of the reasons why we also felt connected to her, because I feel like separately, for me and for Mohammadreza separately, we also had to, in a way, like in our lives, experience the cutting through rocks until we actually ended up being able to finish this film. And one of the nights that we were sharing, we were sharing tea with Sara. One time we were talking about the meaning of life, and she was sharing that I think of life and its struggle as a mountain full of rocks. And if I chip away a little bit of that rock every day, at the end of the day, I'm going to have a clear road. And I could see that she has that, she believes in that spirit and she moves forward with that spirit. And over time, as we were observing how she's able to move and change the community by her through her actions, we I felt like we needed to keep that spirit also in the film as well. You know, when we go from when she's the only female motorcycle rider in the region to all the way, of course, there are backlashes to all the way to the end of the film where the parents are accompanying these young girls and they're going through this road together. For me, this is not the ending. This is the beginning of a bigger ripple effect for a change that could happen for this community. And it has, you know, she was sharing with us that I mean, riding a motorcycle for a woman is not a big deal anymore, apparently. So that's really great. In the region, the girls who are riding at the last shot, they four of them are in a university. They're not married. They're now
Fantastic.
standing for their own rights, and they're kind of the parents are being more supportive. And these are all because Sara is such an initiator, and she kind of breaks the wall, and that's how she is. And we love that, and we wanted to see that in the film as well.
Yeah, and also I can add that it's relates to the philosophy of each filmmaker. So for us it was important to be there and witness that. I remember after the election part when we just had some scenes to show to our colleagues. One of them said, "Guys, you have a story here. A woman fights against patriarchy, some opponents, and then she wins. This is a very beautiful classical structure. So now you can submit to the festivals and stream the film. But for us, it was important to spend 6 more years to see how she uses the power. And also, you can see it's all about the mission of the filmmaker. And we have Laura Poitras here, always making films about individuals that doesn't accept the dominant narrative. So they want to change something. It's hard to put them in a frame. So, and yeah, we wanted to be there and see the change and enjoy a fantastic woman to fight against something that she thinks that is not right.
And I think it's so great because as much as it is a story, like you said, it's specific to your community in that area of Iran. It is a universal story that that people all over the world can relate to, and certainly women all over the world have to beat down the gender binary or the gender wall of what they should and shouldn't be doing. And I say that as the dad of 3 daughters and talking to them about the PE coach said girls are weaker than boys, and I'd be like, yeah. It's the doc I'm making. It's 15 seconds long. It's me yelling at the PE coach. So I think that the universality of that story is what makes it so inspiring. So thank you, Mohammadreza, for leading us to Laura and Mark. So you, speaking about cutting through rocks, you had to cut through the rock of the person you wanted to ask Laura to be in this, who said no many times. And then in the film, it looks like almost wanted to say no, or was saying no. Can you talk about that, the reluctant hero?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to thank you for being in Minneapolis and documenting. I think it's really essential that we document this really terrifying moment this country is in. So thank you. And I just also want to express again, my pride to be in community with the other filmmakers here who are doing such brave, innovative, cinematic storytelling. It's just, it's really so meaningful. With Sai, it's all comes down to trust, which I think a lot of people have been talking about, right? It's all about trust. And, trust then also becomes a theme in the film. And, Sai was distrustful for lots of reasons. One, he doesn't trust the world because he doesn't trust any kind of power, including any filmmaker who has a bit of power over him in that moment. And he's also, fiercely protective of sources. So to get him to agree was to, he, had to, know that we would protect his sources, which was a given. It was like, that was the entry. The point of entries is the trust that we protect his sources. But I think he ultimately agreed because I think he understood that Mark and I were interested in a film that was going to be about him. It is a portrait of him, which makes him uncomfortable, and you kind of see that in the film, but it's also a portrait of the country and the sort of history, these sort of cycles of atrocities and impunity, and lies and cover-ups. And so I think he knew that, and I think he also has a lot of despair about the state of the country, particularly the state of journalism. And what would this democracy look like without investigative journalists that are asking hard questions contemporaneously when they matter, right? Not retrospectively, right? It doesn't help anyone when we all have a consensus that a war was bad after the fact. So
or we save our good information for the book we're writing that comes out.
Right, exactly. So he's just, I think that was the tipping point for him. He trusted us, and he actually deeply cares about this country, and he cares about the state of investigative journalism. So that was why he reluctantly agreed to be in front of the camera for a long time.
I think he also cares, I think, about some of the stories he did, and I think he's aware of their importance and their resonance in contemporary America, My in particular, but certainly Abu Ghraib. And I think he's very aware of that. And it's his way of sort of reintroducing people to that. And I think it's very important to him, particularly My, I think. But the other thing about Sai, that's, he's a person, he's not a young man anymore. He had written a memoir that allowed him to sort of refresh himself with his entire career. And so the timing of that from our perspective was very useful. He was very reacquainted, I should say, with his entire career. And I think that Laura's charm and my long-standing relationship with him, I think he found a comfort level in that. So it was a good pairing in that regard. And he relented, I guess you would say. Never easily, but that's Sai.
Well, another thing I can't help but think about, earlier today, I interviewed Georgia Fort, who was one of the journalists who was arrested alongside Don Lemon for the crime of journalism. So just talk about the role of journalism from Sai's day till now, and how this film is sort of helping to remind us what journalism is supposed to be.
Right. I mean,
and also to remind journalists and to inspire journalists to, keep plunging ahead despite the crime.
Last night we did a screening at Columbia J School, the journalism school, and there were a lot of young journalism students, and one of them was from Pakistan, and she said after the conversation, she was like, "Why are journalists afraid in this country when you have a free press? Why would any journalist not publish the truth?" And that's also a theme that Sai raises. It's like the problem is not censorship in this country because we have the right. We have a First Amendment. It's self-censorship, and the idea that you would not, use this incredible right that we have in this country to talk about wrongdoing, is really shocking, and I think it's in jeopardy right now when people are being arrested for doing journalism or arrested for assembling and protesting. I mean, it's really scary. It's really scary.
For sure.
And it's not new, I mean, that's the other thing about what we're trying to do with this film is say the moment that we're in now it didn't emerge in a vacuum, right? These are repeated cycles of impunity and atrocities that sort of set the stage for this historical moment that we're in right now.
But I think also Sai is such a singular character, and he's emblematic of journalism in a way that a lot of other journalists are not. So if you wanted to find somebody who symbolizes aggressive investigative journalism, I mean, frankly, I don't think there's another. And I think that was it made him an absolutely perfect subject for conveying the importance of serious investigative journalism, and that he's practiced for roughly 60 years. And so I think it was always my desire that would be really the message of this film, that, hey, look, this is what happens when you work this hard. And a lot of it is hard work. I think you probably gather that from the film. He is a man of tremendous energy. So Remarkable.
Well, we're coming towards the end, which I just want to highlight that because I feel like I can just keep going and learning. I do want to talk about, I want to ask a big question of the whole group, and please anybody jump in. Because I find that sometimes in my creative process, there's a moment where I'm like, whose idea was this? Why did I choose this? Who convinced me to do this? Can I turn around? Will someone call me and cancel this so I can move on? So I guess I would just broadly say the role of fear. It could be fear from the outside, could be fear of like Mstyslav saying, a fear of like I could be hurt in this situation or killed, but also just the fear of I'm going to expose something, or the Elizabeth, the fear of like these people. I'm going to have to tell the truth to these people. Could we talk about the point of no return or the role of fear in your creative process, or maybe I'm just alone in that? Whoever wants to jump in.
I can just say
I don't.
we're so not
Yeah.
alone.
Everyone's afraid to talk about fear.
Yeah.
Come on, let's be vulnerable.
The only thing about having made a few films is that you realize every time it's going to be brutal, and it's going to bring you down, it's
Never
going to
easy.
crush you,
No.
and and the only sort of comfort you can have is that the only way through is the process. You have to get through it. But it will bring you to your knees. I think every film has brought me to my knees.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Elizabeth, I see you shaking your head yes, so I'm going to call on you in the class.
I mean, just in making this film, like, with Sara and Mohammadreza, how you guys got together and got married. As I was making this film about people struggling to communicate and love, I had a relationship that was an engagement that fell apart over the course of making this film. So as partly influenced by what I was documenting, and being so humbled in that process where, you're from behind the camera, but you're in no better a place because you are all sort of going through the same kind of struggles. And in my case, with love. So yeah, that's how I was thinking. But
So there was the fear like, I'm learning too much about love and it's making me look at the relationship I'm in currently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, all films do that.
Mstyslav, I saw you.
Yeah, I have so 6 months later, Michelle, an amazing editor and producer of 20 Days in Mariupol and 2000 Minutes to Andriivka, we do everything together. She calls me and she says, Mstyslav, I was logging all the footage and I found your message. And I'm like, what was that message? So apparently, at one of the days in the forest under the bombing, I'm very tired, I'm very frustrated, and I'm there. I keep asking myself what the hell I'm doing here. How did I get here? So I'm crawling out of one of the foxholes, and my camera is always on, and I say, kind of in a frustrated way, Michelle, this is the last movie like that we're making. And I forgot about it, obviously, right?
Yeah.
I just ran off filming something else. And then she calls me 6 months later. She says, I got your message. Are you sure? But the thing is that fear goes right until the moment, and I think, again, just metaphorically or realistically, until the moment that the camera is on. So as soon as you get out, for me, as soon as you get out of that, as they jokingly call it, coffin on wheels, of that armored vehicle, you jump out and you're in the battlefield and you're in that forest and that armored vehicle has left. There's just no way back. That's when the fear stops, and that's where the practicality gets in. And then you start fearing for your friend that is right next to you, and you know that your friend is fearing for you, and that's the way to be. So you stop thinking about yourself at that moment, and you just take care of everyone who is around you, but you know that they are taking care of you.
Yeah.
I think that goes, a long way for the entire crew, because filmmaking is a collective art. Whether you're making it with a partner or with a group of people, it's still you thinking about them too, and that's where your fear stops.
Yeah.
Mohammadreza, I hear you saying, so that's I'm calling it.
Yeah, just this kind of similar experiences. A few days ago, a friend asked us, guys, are you worried about coming back to Iran after this film?
Yeah, I wondered that.
And I said, I've been worried my entire life. Really, it's not just for now. And while making this film, I had a nightmare. It was just
About your hard drives.
about hard drives.
Yeah.
Oh, I was in the airport and the authority asking me for the hard drive.
Wait, Mohammadreza had different versions of this night.
So and then one day we were in our apartment in Tehran, and 10 people entered to our house, to apartment, and searched everything for 8 hours. And they confiscated all of our hard drives, all cell phones and everything. And then they interrogated us separately a few times. And then they banned us from leaving the country and of course working on this film. And after 1 year, by having support from two amazing lawyers in Iran, so they closed our case. But what happened was 2 days after closing our case, we returned back to the village to continue working on this film. So we didn't have any other choice than being brave, because our character was a brave person. And also, you can find so many brave Iranians now just asking for their rights. And we are not exceptional. We were just one of them. And we were in a position to narrate one of those stories, Sara Shahverdi's stories. And as you can see in the film, she's so brave, just fighting without any fear. And I can say she inspired me, at least, a lot. And also for Sara, just coming, it's this kind of re-immigration, coming from New York to Iran again, and everything was new, just working on a film. Being a filmmaker, it's a big scene. And also, it's like a, how do you say? It's like a drug dealer. Being a drug dealer is less stressful than being a filmmaker.
It sometimes feels that way, for sure.
And also, as a woman filmmaker, also it adds on the.
Yeah, I think when you bring up the idea of fear, I think fear goes different layers. Fear goes hand in hand with creativity, and then what's happening on the ground, and to the people, you want to make sure their safety is in place, and then on another layer is what will happen to you. Are you able to go back? Are you able to stay? Are you able to, and there's so many decisions that I think we make unconsciously, and then we stand by them because we believe in them. But so many decisions that are yet to be made depending on what happens. So there's a lot of unpredictable events that happens for us as collectively as documentary filmmakers that I think we just all have to be somewhat fearless to face them one way or the other, to keep going, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to make the films that we make. And I think we just have to live with those fears as long as we can.
Yeah. And I left Iran coming to US to enjoy freedom here. So, and today you made me so disappointed, actually, about what is happening.
Here.
Yeah, you think you're disappointed.
Wherever you are in the world, you have to fight for your freedom. That's
100%.
Well said.
Yeah.
Geeta, I want to give you a chance to speak on fear.
The only thing I echo everything that my colleagues have said. Everything they said is resonates 100%. I think too, for me, so this film, the family was getting death threats. When you talk about, Florida, right? Florida, where, like, again, the heart of sort of, a lot of the where racialized issues kind of spring from. There was, I had my fear mostly centered around them and the community and the family, to be honest, because the film for me, like I said, was in some ways therapy, was in some ways grief work, was in some ways trying to understand this very senseless murder. But it also, to me, what happened in that beautiful little community, it sort of, to me, felt like a microcosm of the world, of our world, our society, where, like, we're at the point where people are so polarized that you feel that you can pick up a gun to solve a dispute, a trivial dispute with your neighbor, begs the question of what else you'll tolerate, what else you will normalize. Will you normalize genocide? Will you normalize war? Will you normalize, again, your neighbors being kidnapped and trafficked and put in camps and concentration camps? What will you normalize? So to me, it's like it's this little microcosm speaks to, I think, all the much, like, everyone's films here are so powerful, right? And are the issues, again, these are all, in some ways, even all of them are deeply political films that speak to like issues around the globe. And with this film, but I think the fear for me lay in that, because speaking out about these things, and then you have this, this community and this family, I was frightened for them. I was like, once this comes out, and particularly on a platform where it, could have many eyes, that's something frightening about that. And I worried that I hadn't prepared them, like, because you can tell people what you're doing, but if they don't really understand it till it happens, till the film is out in the world. And then suddenly, and their lives are perhaps forever changed. So that was the most, and it's always in my consciousness around everything, because again, these are real people. These are not actors. These are their real lives. And suddenly they are so exposed. So, but again, I was fortunate in this to have an incredibly brave sort of community that backed it and was like, no, this is what we want, and would continue to want it. Like, I have not yet heard, I've been waiting for the call, was waiting for the call afterwards. Like, this was a mistake. Take it down, I don't want to be in it anymore, or get rid of it, and that has not happened. So it's really an honor for me to have been able to, for them to allow me to tell their story.
So the last question I want to ask everyone, and we'll just go around, and please take this whatever direction you want to, is, documentary went through a boom period where suddenly documentaries were very hot and big prices at festivals and making money and things like that. And that period has passed us by. Also, America went through a period of like, America as a whole went through a period of like, maybe we need to hear more diverse stories and be open to more different types of ideas. And the powers that be said, let's do the reverse of that. Let's not be open to more diverse stories. And we don't need to hear more diverse ideas. Why are you a documentary filmmaker in 2026? Why do you choose to continue to make documentary films when all of you are very intelligent, you're very skilled, you can apply these skills in other areas? Why documentary film now? I'll start with you. Laura.
Oh, it's the only skill I have to respond to the world that I live in. It's really the only way I can, really express what I want to say about the world, and I think it's a powerful tool. I think changing narratives is really important, and that's why it's kind of the only thing I know how to do.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say the same, but I have to hold out hope that, granted, there are many, many documentary films, ours included, and not all of them break through, but occasionally one does. And I think that's incredibly important. I got into this. I remember my parents talking about how when television, in the early days of television, they saw this documentary by Edward R. Murrow, the legendary Edward R. Murrow, called Harvest of Shame, and how it was broadcasted, and there were hearings on television, and it changed the way migrants actually were treated in Florida at that time. And I've sort of had that in the back of my mind ever since. I heard them, my parents start talking about that, and that was one of the things that got me into this business. And I think you still have to hold out that belief that that they break through and they make a difference, even if it's not on such a mass level as perhaps it did when television was more widely seen, when there were only 3 networks or whatever. But I believe these films are relevant and influence people, and that's the only reason I would do them.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
That question makes me think of my first film, which was called Stray, and it kind of documented the lives of stray dogs wandering through Istanbul at a time when it was legal for dogs. It was illegal to euthanize and incarcerate dogs. And since then, the President Erdogan has rounded up and killed a lot of stray dogs, and he's gone against his own country's laws. And people have reached out to me, Turkish people have reached out to me about it, that, the film is now this capsule, this memory of a time that was more beautiful. And I think there's something precious about that, even though the film obviously, didn't make change, wasn't able to stop larger forces in the world. But I think there's some value in documenting life as it was at a certain period in time.
For sure. Geeta?
I think I, like Laura, now have no other skills to either. It's too late for me, y'all. Like, I feel like there's no, I don't know what else I could do. But also too, I think I firmly believe in the idea that that film has a way, and in many forms, film has a way of reaching people. This kind of storytelling has a way of reaching people in ways that can be life-changing, and can have impact. And it's true. It's like in this industry, it can be challenging. It's about, not all of the films break through in the way that they should and could, or get the attention they deserve. But if, the ones that do, or if any of them do, I think it can really, it can alter people's hearts and minds. And I think that's really critical, and raise awareness around issues that need it.
Thank you. Mstyslav?
I've changed. I was a writer, then I became a journalist, then I became a filmmaker, and I think that trajectory also feels right to me, because documentary is such a vital medium right now. It has this ability to preserve stories that otherwise would have been completely forgotten or unnoticed. I remember making story of Mariupol as a journalistic investigation and daily news, and that not nearly had an impact on general public around the world, but also nearly mattered as much for the people of Mariupol or people of 2,000 meters to Andriivka, for preserving the memories of their loved ones who have died, for preserving the memories of their city and of their communities that have been destroyed by war. So that ability to preserve in time, and especially I think the world, again, it is kind of a generic statement. I think every generation makes that statement that, we live in a world that is falling apart. But it does seem that we do live in a world that is
It's
very,
falling
very
apart.
on fire. And I can see how painful it is for vulnerable people to know that there is no justice in the world. Geeta, goes to your work, but also to each one of your films, each one of your films. Yeah, and the people don't believe in God, and they don't believe in God, and there is no justice in heaven and hell. And then nobody believes in international court of justice anymore, because there is power over those who are stronger, those who have power, those are the right ones. And then the only way to find justice in the world right now is historical justice. This hope that in time the story will put everything in the right place, right? And so documentaries do that. They put everything in the right place and preserve it in time. So I think that's kind of a last resort of justice, even.
Thank you.
I really hope so, I guess. I mean, then there is no hope for justice at all if that's not the case.
I agree with what you're saying, that documentaries are a last place to sort of set the record straight, or a place to set the record straight.
Yeah. And sometimes 20 years later, Laura, like 20 years later, right? Some stories wait for a very, very long time to be told and or retold in the way that everyone will finally know about them.
Yeah. Thank you. Mohammadreza and Sara, you get the final word on why documentary now in 2026.
That's a very good question, and I echo a lot of what all of my colleagues said resonates with me, and it's like I love the practice of documenting. I love seeing things in retrospect and looking back in time and looking forward in time and seeing how things affected and how things changed and there are sometimes real dramas in our real life that we wouldn't be able to. They're just the stories are there and they're just waiting to be told. It's just that we wouldn't be able to find that anywhere else. You know, if you find the best scriptwriter, they wouldn't be able to be that creative to bring all these dramas into one lifetime, and just to be good observance and to put the dots together and just connect all of these stories and bring it to life. I think is a practice that I love and I enjoy so much, and I feel like we are standing on the shoulders of masters of cinema, especially when it comes to documentary filmmaking, the Maysles brothers and the D.A. Pennebaker. I remember watching and being in awe of their patience and how they did that and how they patiently told the stories the way they did. And I kind of always wanted to bring that observational approach into life in general. And I appreciate sometimes even in our small get-togethers, I see Mohammadreza not letting go of his camera, and there's something about that I appreciate. That you life is too precious to let go. To you wanna be able to see it and record it and document it and understand it. Yeah.
Yeah, beautifully said. So,
Yeah.
you know, when I was much younger, all of us like having existential crisis, and I can say the cinema rescued my life by watching the film and then deciding to study cinema and then deciding to make films and watching fiction and non-fiction films from different directors from different parts of the world, from Japan, from Italy, from France, from US, and everywhere, and also Iranian cinema. So I learned to actually, by making films, to trying to do something, and the filmmakers that I admire, directors against dictators. So that idea helped me to think about other kind of living. So because otherwise, I think life is many times very disappointing, and we need individuals, artists, filmmakers to fight against it. Sara and I have a habit of reading Hafiz, Iranian poet coming from 1,000 years ago, but just always getting inspired by his words, just living in a very dark era, but his poetry is full of hope, resilience, and also meaning.
And oddly still relevant.
And relevant, yeah. So I'm happy that he started to actually write those beautiful poetries to help me now, 1,000 later, after his life. And we are making films to have a little bit of influence on next generations. We need that. I think it's very, very important to tell stories. And I'm so proud being here now with some of those wonderful storytellers.
Well, thank you to all of you for doing this.
Thank
Congratulations
you.
for your nominations. Good luck and Godspeed to all of you, and thank you to the DGA for hosting us. And we'll see you next time, everybody. Thank you. Good night.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Thank you so much.